Hello. Just wanted to talk about Vampire Survivors. I'm gonna try a new format here where I'm just going to talk in one take, unedited, and just to give you my unfiltered opinions. And while the ideas are still fresh in my head, I have a list of talking points here so I don't wander off. And I also have very little experience talking to a camera, so you'll see me looking up and down a lot. I left some space over here to put up some relevant graphics. So I'm going to be talking about why I find the game so fun and my perspective on it as an indie game dev. So quick background so you know where my opinions are coming from. I started game dev and programming in around 2013. I have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, and I'm primarily a programmer and game designer. I use the Unity game engine for most of my projects, and I also stream development on Twitch, and I have a Discord. I use both to try and educate game development and programming. I have a Steam release called PHYSARUM Slime Mold Simulator. Game's a little hard to describe. It's a simulation game where you can manipulate an organism called PHYSARUM polycephalum. It's a slime mode from real life. And it's akin to the Falling Sand games back in the day, if you ever tried those games. Except more organic. Again, best way to check out the game would be to check out the trailer. I'll link everything I talk about below, of course. And I also have a 2D arena shooter that I made that has time rewind mechanics. It was inspired by the movie Tenet. That one's unreleased. Not sure what I want to do with that game yet. And I, of course, have my main game. It's a 2D turn-based RPG that I started back in 2013 when I started game dev. And that one's still going. It's the main game I stream on Twitch. And I also have other smaller projects like Bloom Attenuation and potentially some shader tutorials that I'll release on YouTube. I'm thinking about making one on the Darkest Dungeon 2 shader that you see all over the game. Anyway, Vampire Survivors. So, Vampire Survivors is appearing all over YouTube and Twitch, at least on my algorithm. I decided to check out the Steam page. It was $3 Canadian, so I just picked it up, gave it a try. Pretty much instantly addicted. And I just want to talk about why. And why I think it's a well-designed game. It's an auto shooter roguelike, much like Death State, if you've ever seen that game. Basically, you walk around, your abilities use themselves, and your only job is to grab XP on the ground and dodge enemies. You kill enemies, you level up, and when you level up, you get items to pick from. If you pick the same item you already have, the item gets better. There are actives and passive items, and there's also a long-term progression system. As a classic art style, much akin to Castlevania, game takes a lot from Castlevania, like the cross item and the holy water. Their characters are much inspired by Castlevania, like there's a Belmont looking one and a Alucard looking one, etc. The game overall is just very easy to play and satisfying, if I were to summarize it. My experience with the game is 14 hours of game time. I gained that in about 3 sessions of the game. I have all the achievements and unlocks. I unlocked most of the things in the long-term progression, which gives you permanent stat upgrades, if I didn't mention that. So I was just constantly surprised by all the unlocks and systems from the game. There's multiple levels, there's multiple characters, of course, a myriad of items. Um, Something called hyper mode you can unlock. I've been referring to the game as a dopamine generator on my stream. It has a great art style. You constantly have close calls in the game with powerful power-ups to put you back in the game. There's the chests, of course, which drop when you kill certain bigger enemies. The chests can give you 1, 3, or 5 items, as well as a bunch of coins for your long-term progression. Every time you open a chest, there's just beams of light, there's music, there's gem confetti. It just feels great. There's potential of getting multiple items. And the game has a really good one more run aspect to it. It's survival. And the coin system makes you want to just keep playing, because the more you play, the more you know about the game and the more stats you have on your character. The builds you can make are also very satisfying. They have limits to how many actives and passives you can have. There's also a evolve mechanic, which basically upgrades your weapon into a even more powerful version if you have it at the max level. And I think you need the matching passive, and I think that needs to be leveled to like 2 or 3 or something like that. And if you have that and you pick up a chest, then the chest will drop you your evolved weapon, which will add properties like lifesteal and enemy penetration, which are rare effects in the game. So the game overall is just very elegantly designed. It's very pick up and play. It appeals to pretty much all audiences, like children, the mainstream, the hardcore gamers, everybody. I do believe there is a mobile version, which makes a lot of sense because all you need to do is move. The limited slot system, I think, is great because it encourages doing multiple runs. It is unlike Risk of Rain 2, which is tangentially similar. In Risk of Rain 2, you can just pick up all items. Not to knock on Risk of Rain 2, that's also a great game. It is... So, one of the great things about this game, in terms of development, is that it's... Well, first of all, it's in early access. So, there's just constant updates. And these updates can easily expand the game. You can add items, characters, levels, new evolutions. And it's just a great way to keep the game relevant, I think. And to keep people playing. The levels are also deterministic in some ways. For example, certain waves will appear in certain times consistently. I think that's also great because it gives players the ability to prepare and to experiment with their builds. Another great thing about the game is there are no tutorials. You press start and you just start moving around. I think a lot of the things are self-explanatory, but if not, they're very easy to learn. I mean, the evolve mechanic is a little hidden, but it is mentioned in the game itself, in the unlock list. I think I accidentally got a evolve with the fireball, and the tooltip says something like, "Oh, fireball evolve because of spinach." So Now I know we need spinach to evolve the fireball. And that kind of led me down a path where I just experimented with all the weapons and passive combinations until I found out all the evolutions. Because there are limited slots, I think it's really fun to try and find optimal builds because the different characters have different starting weapons and stats, and some of them have unique abilities. The stats are great because they're meaningful. There's no useless stat. I think they're all useful. Some stats are better on some characters, some stats are better on some items. And the stats affect all the items in different ways. So you usually can pick up any passive and it will give you some sort of positive. I think the main thing about the game is that it just feels very exciting. The chests are literally loot boxes, without being actually loot boxes. I find that to be quite impressive. It gives you the exact same feeling without any real world money. The way I describe the game is that it's just the most video game I've played in a while. It reminds me a lot of the old Flash games I used to play on the internet, and the game doesn't take itself too seriously. It's quite silly. They called the holy water Santa water for some reason. I'm actually almost angry at the game because I didn't come up with it. So lots of respect to the devs. It'd be cool if I can interview or talk to the devs, just to learn more about what they were thinking making the game. They seem like a bunch of silly guys. Their latest update released something called an NFT, but it's not actually an NFT. From their updates, the devs are working on porting the game and porting the engine right now, so hopefully we'll see more content updates. I'm sure there will be. The NFT update already added 2 new evolutions, for example. I do have slight criticisms for the game. Like I said, I like the limited slot system a lot, but and minor spoilers here, but the game does end, and I just found that at least for specific characters, you can do the exact same build, which includes evolutions, and it'll basically win you the game every time. So that's a symptom of both the limited slots and the deterministic levels. That won't be much of an issue as we get more levels and characters, I think, and items. I mean, as there's more items, it'll be a lot harder to get the same build, which I think is a good thing. So the evolve system, this is less of a criticism, but more of an interesting design problem. The evolve system requires 1 passive and 1 active item that match. And all the passives in the game correspond to one of the stats in the game, which means you can only have so many evolutions. So I think the obvious thing to do is to start adding passive items that give you multiple stats, or maybe passive items that lowers one stat and increases another, or maybe just passive items that do something that's nothing to do with stats, perhaps. But that's pretty much my thoughts on the game. Why I think so many people are playing it and are addicted to it. So buy the game. It's $3 Canadian. If you don't have $3 Canadian, it's actually free on itch.io. And those are my thoughts on Vampire Survivors. So I got some planned videos coming up. I have the shader tutorial, I got a devlog, maybe some other stuff, like this video. So sub if you're interested in that, sub, like, all that kind of stuff. My Twitch and Discord, that'll be linked below, and of course check out PHYSARUM, which is 10% off right now at the time of recording, for the Steam Lunar Sale. So until next video, goodbye.